Hello, everybody, and welcome to This Week in Crypto Philanthropy, your guide to crypto powered good. My name is Emily Facilla, Director of Client Strategy at The Giving Block. I will be your guest host this week, covering for my colleagues, Nick and Pietro. And today we have a very special guest. Katie has joined us from Outright International. For 35 years, Outright International has advanced universal human rights for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex, and queer people worldwide. Katie has been a longtime client of the Giving Block. She also serves on our advisory board and has embraced crypto over the years as a function to further their incredible mission they've got at Outright. Katie, I'll let you do a quick introduction of yourself as well.
Well, you did a great job introducing Outright, Emily. It's true, we're celebrating our 35th anniversary this year. Outright's mission is to protect the human rights and improve the lives of LGBTIQ people around the world, especially in places where our communities face extreme persecution, discrimination, and violence. And I have been with Outright on staff. I'm the director of leadership giving. I've been with the organization for over 7 years on staff, and I was a board member and a donor before that, and I'm still a supporter of the organization. So I could share a little bit more about how I got here, but it's not just a job for me. I'm a member of this community, and it's really a calling and a big part of my life.
They're so lucky to have you, and we are so lucky to be talking to you today. So, I want to take it back and talk a little bit about how you got into crypto. When did you first encounter cryptocurrency, and what drew you to its potential for advancing human rights work?
So, like I mentioned, I've been with Outright for a little over 7 years, but my entire career has been in the nonprofit and social justice sectors. I have a master's degree in nonprofit leadership and management, and I've mostly focused on fundraising and development. And that's because I love developing strong and warm and productive relationships with other people like me who want to be in solidarity and help us work towards a shared vision together. And I really came to Outright because I'm very passionate about this community that I'm a part of, the LGBTIQ community, and being in solidarity with other members of our community who really are doing incredible work around the world. And we're making a lot of progress, but we have a long way to go in terms of protecting the rights of our community. So that's what I'm really passionate about. And at Outright, my job is to help support the organization and its work, and also our partners, and to raise the visibility of LGBTIQ people and issues in philanthropy spaces. So I first found out about crypto, I think, back in 2021, and I can share a little bit more of the story of how Outright got involved. But we had some board members who had some investments in the crypto space and started asking us about, whether we could facilitate donations of crypto to further our mission. And I just started looking, we contacted the Giving Block, and I started looking a little bit more into the Web3 space and getting to know some of the other, you all who are just experts and leaders at that time, but also some of the other founders and project leaders and artists in this space that were sharing their work. And so I was really drawn to it on a personal level, really interested in the art that I was seeing from, especially from women and queer artists, and also the entrepreneurial thinking from founders and others who in leaders in the space who really could see the potential to democratize and decentralize work that is happening that can benefit our communities, and also think about philanthropy in new ways. So one of the things that I love doing for Outright is to think really creatively about new strategies and spaces in the philanthropy world and sector where we can share our work and fuel the work of our movement. So that is my personal story, and I'm also happy to share a little bit more about Outright's journey through the years as well.
Amazing. We love to hear that route of the board members to accepting crypto pipeline. It's so common in this sector to have someone hand raise and say, "Hey, I'm into crypto. Could you guys accept it?" And from that point, so much can happen. So many beautiful moments can happen. So I want to get into that a little bit with you in terms of since launching crypto giving, have there been any standout campaigns, donor stories, unexpected gifts or benefits that have really impacted Outright's mission positively?
So many. Gosh. Well, like as I mentioned, the first exposure I think was finding board members who were asking about it, but also finding artists in the space who were really interested, who were members of or allies to the LGBTIQ community and who wanted to incorporate philanthropy and giving back as part of their art and sharing their art in the Web3 space. And so we've had, I think we've been working with the Giving Block since 2021, if I'm not mistaken, and we've worked with some other platforms as well. But I think I'm really focused on, the projects and the artists that we've been able to meet. So a couple of really great examples. There's a wonderful uh, photographer who's a trans artist, Lori Grace Bailey, who's done several projects and releases of her work that have benefited Outright. We worked with the artists Hackatow, who have had a number of are well-known artists in the space and have had some really interesting projects. And Queens and Kings is one of their projects that benefited and partnered with Outright. We've worked with World of Women, which is another really cool project that helps support the work that we do to support LBQ women around the world. Um, there's a great artist that I love, Juraz, who's had a couple of different projects, generative art projects. Jimena Buenavida is another amazing artist who's done some things with us. The artists behind the QQL project have been supportive. And I think in terms of what I love, have so enjoyed getting to know them and their work and appreciated their interest in giving back. But also what has been incredible is to see the impact that they've been able to have, and the members of their communities are people who have gotten connected to Outright through them. So just a couple of examples. We launched a Ukraine fund actually a couple days after Russia invaded Ukraine back in 2022, and there were several different projects and communities that were able to do fundraising in the Web3 space to support our Ukraine fund. And through that, we've been able to distribute about $3.8 million to LGBTI groups on the ground in Ukraine and some of the neighboring countries who are making sure that LGBTIQ people, queer, trans, and intersex people who are suffering because of the war are reached and have the ability to access basic services like housing, food, help with job placement, psychological care. And these are people who are otherwise getting left behind by the traditional and mainstream humanitarian sector. So that support has been instrumental in being able to support our community that's really impacted by that war. We also, as I mentioned, we worked with World of Women and some other projects and donors in the space to support our LBQ Connect program, which is an incredible program that supports lesbian, bisexual, and queer women and gender diverse folks who are activists in the global South and East. So we have had participants from over 100 countries that have been a part of that program. Over 300 LBQ activists have been a part of that program, and we have been able to provide training, technical assistance. We've helped them with research projects, and we've made grants to over $700,000 of grants to these small organizations. Most of them have a budget of less than $40,000, and they don't have a lot of them don't even have paid staff. So this might be the first time that they're even accessing funding from outside of their community to really support their work. But it has been instrumental in getting them the support that they need to serve LBQ folks in their communities and also elevate their issues in halls of power like the United Nations, which is one place where Outright is really active. So those are a couple of examples that I just love to share about both the artists and the founders and the donors and platforms like you all that we've been able to work with, but also the impact that they've already had on our work and on our communities around the world.
That's incredible. Something that always strikes me when we talk about Outright is how vast your scope of impact is, how many countries you work in. You just referenced over 100 countries, and I know that you're doing deep work in many countries, which is so incredible for this community. One thing that is fantastic about crypto donors is how global they are, right? You really share that. You're getting crypto donors from all over the globe, and this is typical behavior we see from this community. I wonder what messaging you have found in terms of educating both longtime supporters and these new Web3 natives about why crypto gifts matter and why they matter specifically to outright and LGBTIQ equality.
Such a great question. And you're right. I mean, although Outright's headquartered in New York, we have staff in 15 countries. And as I mentioned, we have partners in, well over 100 countries around the world. And I think, for US donors and donors, and there's very different, rules and regulations for philanthropy in different countries around the world, but certainly for US donors, I think understanding the tax benefits of donating crypto and thinking about different kinds of assets that people can donate is something that we have shared and highlighted with our donors. And it's just one option of many that they can give. And of course, you all have been amazing about expanding your offerings as well. So we can work with donors who want to donate gifts of stock, or who want to donate through their donor advice fund, or who want to donate crypto or other assets, not just cash. So I think focusing logistically on the tax benefits has been helpful, just to because it's new, so not everyone is even aware of the potential there. The other thing, and this doesn't is not just for crypto donors, but I think it's something that probably matters even more to this community, is sharing the impact, right? So we really love to share both the data of how many people we're able to help, what kinds of projects they're able to do with the support, how that's really impacting people's lives, and then also to share stories. So I think, one thing that I've noticed is sometimes people might have a hard time understanding what what is the benefit of a group that focuses on activism or human rights? How does that help real people? And I think telling very specific stories of how queer people, trans people, and intersex people, what is happening in their lives, the ways in which they are being discriminated against, the kind of violence that they face in a lot of places, and the kind of persecution that they face in a lot of places, for people to really understand. Imagine if someone, you probably know and love and care about someone who is part of the LGBTIQ community in your life, whether it's a colleague or a family member or a friend. Think about that friend, and if they were in a situation where they couldn't walk openly on the street without fear of being harassed or being attacked. They might not be able to rent an apartment and find a place to live. They might be kicked out of their home or shunned by their family member or their faith community. These are the kinds of things that a lot of people in our community face on a very daily basis. There's still about 65 countries that criminalize same sex intimacy, and about a dozen of those countries impose a death penalty just for being who you are. So I think for people to really understand that, and then also understand the impact of when they make a gift, how does that actually improve real people's lives? Um, a few other things around messaging and communication that come to mind. One is that not only can people give and get involved from all over around the world, but it's actually imperative that we are in solidarity with each other across borders. We can't make progress without, and we can't defend our community against the attacks that are happening by only looking at what's happening inside the U.S. or only looking at what's happening in another corner of the world. We have to look at what's happening as a we're facing threats that are coordinated, well funded, and coordinated across borders, and we have seen the power of working together across borders, as activists across borders, and the ability to make progress by doing that. Um, I also think that it's really exciting to share with people the high return on investment, or ROI, when you support, really, probably many different types of work around the world, but certainly with LGBTIQ activism around the world, the people who are doing this work are extremely entrepreneurial, very creative, very scrappy, very resilient, and they've made a huge amount of progress. And this is where I'm going to get loud and passionate because I do feel extremely excited about the fact that when you look back over the last 20 or 30 years, there has been so much progress. We've seen since 1990, over, I think, 55 countries have decriminalized homosexuality. Since 2001, 39 countries have approved marriage equality at a federal level. It is more than 20 countries have banned so-called conversion therapy, which are, harmful practices that try to force people to change their sexual orientation or gender identity. So it is incredibly exciting how much progress has been made. And I know that our communities are really struggling right now. And I do want to talk a little bit more about those challenges. But the reality is that there is still an opportunity to make a lot of progress. And even with small donations, people can have a very outsized impact, especially when you're looking at places where the dollar can go, or the cryptocurrency can go very, very far.
Beautiful. So many incredible accomplishments over that time period, but I know there's also so much work ahead of you and your team, new challenges that have been occurring. So I want to talk a little bit about looking to the future. I know Outright has a gala next week, and then we are right on the precipice of June, Pride Month, here in the US. So for anyone listening today, what are some key ways to get involved with Outright? What are some of the key things that you are looking at as an organization where this beautiful crypto community that you've been so embraced by, so many different NFT projects, meme coins, stable coins, how can they better support your work moving forward?
So you're right. Pride Month. Well, Pride Month is every month, Emily. I know you would agree, but we also are very excited to celebrate Pride Month in June. And I do want to tell you a little bit more about our campaigns for Pride Month. But first, I just wanted to let people know why it's so important right now. It's not just because it's Pride Month, but also our communities are facing an actually what we call an existential crisis right now. And that is because with the funding cuts that have happened from the US government, other governments that are pulling back from supporting LGBTIQ communities around the world, and other shifts in the corporate sector and the private sector, our movement is actually facing a devastating and pivotal moment. And so, just as one example, between the US and the Netherlands, we've lost about $105 million just this year alone in funding for our movement. And that's about a quarter of the funding for our entire movement around the world. So it's actually an incredibly critical time. We're at risk of a lot of organizations closing around the world if they're not able to find other sources of support. And we know that that's going to have a really direct impact on LGBTIQ people and communities in places where, for many reasons, it's not possible for them to do a lot of local fundraising. There may not be a very strong culture or tradition or capacity for philanthropy. They may be operating in environments where being LGBTIQ or operating an LGBTIQ organization is criminalized, and it's very difficult to fundraise in those environments. So it's an incredibly critical time for people to get involved, and also to remember that Pride started as a protest. We celebrate Pride, and we are all about, even in the midst of hard times, which we have been through before. We are all about joy and bringing joy and community into the world, not just in our community, but to spread it out beyond the LGBTIQ community. But it's also a time to protest, and it is a time to stand up for people in our communities who may not be able to do it for themselves or who need people to stand with them. So the way that we're doing that, we have a campaign every year during Pride Month called Outright Proud. And the theme for Outright Proud this year is Stronger Together. And it just is harkening back to that call to action of standing in solidarity with each other across borders. And so we have a number of different things going on with that campaign. We're going to be putting out messages and opportunities for people to share information and calls to action to support our work and our partners all month long. A few examples: we are going to be marching at World Pride in DC, and also in New York Pride. We are working with an incredible PR firm that is doing pro bono work with us to create a March for All campaign. And that is to match people who are wanting to march in pride, but to march for someone else who can't,
Mm.
wherever they might live, and to find people who want someone to march with for them, and to match them with someone who's willing to march for them and with them in solidarity. So you can find out more about Outright Proud and the March for All campaign on our website. We also every year release a report called Pride Around the World, which is basically a temperature check on what is happening with Pride celebrations and marches and protests around the world. Where are we seeing new prides being celebrated? Where are we seeing, bans on prides? You might have heard that Hungary just passed a new ban on public pride celebrations. Well, guess what? Activists in Hungary are still planning to celebrate Pride no matter what the government says, and we want to be there to support them. So our Pride Around the World report will come out in the middle of June, towards middle second half of June, and we'll be pushing that out. We'll have a webinar that people can come and hear people talk about their experiences of Pride around the world. The best way for people to follow along is to either go to our website or to follow us on our social media channels, which are primarily Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, Blue Sky. We've kind of got them all covered, but we'll share news about what's happening around the world and more calls to action about how people can take action with us to be stronger together during Pride Month.
Amazing. I love how many different ways you have to get involved, not only locally, but also digitally. It really helps people bond with Outright's work. And I think that is one of the reasons the crypto community has been so attracted to you in the past, is that ability to see and hear about their impact firsthand. You all do it so well, and the work you are doing cannot be overstated how important it is. One last thing before I let you go. You have the honor of serving, well, we have the honor of having you serve on our advisory board. And from that, you really get a wide lens of the sector and some of your peers in this sector. Is there anything about the crypto philanthropy innovation movement that excites you the most? And what should other nonprofits perhaps be looking out for when it comes to crypto philanthropy?
Well, I would love to know what you would say. And I know you've often shared, so thank you, you and your team for always highlighting best practices between organizations and also sharing your analysis. So I definitely defer to you on what you think is coming around the corner. But the things that I've noticed, and it has really been an honor and so fun for me to connect with your team and with other nonprofit folks who are leaders in this space through the advisory board. I've really enjoyed that and getting that insight into what's happening in our sector. Um, I think, one thing that really I've just seen happening so much over the past 4 years is in general the mainstreaming of crypto as an asset class that more investors and regular, and by that I just mean regular people who are investors, that are incorporating that into their portfolio in some way, and seeing that adoption by mainstream financial institutions and um, wealth and philanthropy advisors in in the larger financial and philanthropy sector. And so I think that it's important for nonprofits to pay attention to that, because it is going to increasingly become one of the tools in the toolbox that donors can use amongst many others that we've talked about before. And if we don't meet donors where they are, then and of course stay true to obviously our values and our size and our scale and what we can all do. But you all make that really easy, I think, even for small organizations. If we ignore that, I think it's at our own peril. And I don't want to see LGBTIQ causes. I've been passionate about, onboarding and helping other peer organizations that are interested, getting in touch with you and learning more about the sector, because I think it's important for us to be at the table and not be left behind, and also to let our donors know that this is an option. So that mainstreaming is something that I have seen a lot of, and I know will continue. The other is the rise of people giving through donor advised funds, of course. And
Mhm.
we've all seen that. And those of us who've been fundraising for a long time have seen that happen over the last 20, 25 years, but definitely in the last 5 to 10 years. And I don't think that is going to slow down anytime soon. So I think paying attention to that, continuing to communicate with donors, trying to build relationships with the advisors who are working with donors, and continuing to make that available, easy and available to donors who want to give that way, I think is really important. And then finally, I would just say we've talked about this a little bit, but we've definitely seen an increase in the number of donors outside of the U.S. And
Mhm.
so we are a global organization, so that is actually really important to us, that we continue to welcome and connect with donors who are all over the world. I think we had we launched a COVID fund back in 2020, and we ended up distributing almost $4 million to LGBTI groups around the world, and it was we supported organizations in more than 100 countries, and I think we had donors in more than 100 countries. That I think is also only going to increase. So I would say those are. You can tell me what I'm missing, but those are the things that I've really noticed happening in our sector.
I think you nailed it. The mainstream aspect is very important, right? That crypto adoption means that more and more the donors that you already have in your database are investing in crypto, and with the volatility of crypto, which many people think is a negative thing, it's actually quite positive, especially for nonprofits who can offer those tax benefits as those gains swing back up from maybe a little bit of a bear market. There's so many capital gains for US donors to offset by donating their crypto to an organization like Outright. So that mainstream aspect is super important. DAFs, I love that you brought up, because donor advised funds are oftentimes now, especially for millennial or Gen X donors, made up of stock contributions and crypto contributions. So you might not even realize that you're getting crypto contributions because they're coming from a DAF, but definitely think that will increase the borderless transactions that crypto can provide. The fact that crypto's value is the same regardless of which country you're in is so important. And I think it will become even more important from a programmatic standpoint for many nonprofits moving forward. But I think overall, you really nailed it. Lots to look out for, lots of exciting things ahead in terms of crypto philanthropy and its opportunity. And we're so grateful that Outright is along for the ride and has been here for years now. Very excited to see what this community can do to help make up for some of the unfortunate cuts that are happening across our sector. So, looking to individuals, looking to communities right now, and that includes the crypto community, to help us support organizations like Outright during this time and
Yeah,
always.
and let me just say too, I would welcome and encourage anyone who is a part of the LGBTIQ community to step up and find some organization, I always say find a local organization, find someone that's doing something kind of at the national level, and find a global organization, because I really do believe that cross-border philanthropy and activism and support is really important. But and many of our most longtime and generous donors do not identify as part of the LGBTIQ community, but they are allies. They have queer children, they have trans siblings, they have colleagues who are members of the LGBTIQ community. And I think that this goes back again to the storytelling, encouraging and welcoming and inviting allies in and letting them know how important they are and really asking them to think about, again, please think about the queer people in your life that you love, and know that this is a really challenging time for them, no matter where they live. This is a very challenging time. A lot of people, I think, are feeling and are actually under attack. So we need more allies to step in with us and to support the organizations that support our communities. So we love allies. We love all of our queer siblings, and we love allies, and we want everyone to come with us to celebrate Pride. No one will take away the strength and the joy and the resilience of our community. And we also have to keep protesting. So that's what we're going to be doing all Pride Month, and Pride is 365 days a year. So you can jump in anytime.
Thank you so much for being here today, Katie. And for everybody else, we will see you next week.